Welcome to another edition of the Five Star Zone. I'm your host, Rico Beard. It's a week two Big Ten wrap up. And you know what? There was some surprising games that happened in the Big Ten. There were some teams that put up phenomenal scores. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Indiana. What the heck got into you? 77-3? Wow. Quite impressive. But let's start off with the big game. The big game had ESPN, it had Fox, it had everybody there for the pregame show. Texas, Michigan. This was a chance for the Big Ten to put their stamp on the season. Michigan coming in, defending national champions. Texas ranked at the time, I think, number 3 in the nation. What was going to happen? Well, it kind of went exactly how I thought it was going to happen. Guys, look, bottom line, this is not last year's Michigan team. This team is void of stars. It's void of playmakers. It's void of a lot of things. Yes, they do have a lot of great pieces on defense, but after what I saw Texas do, look, either Wink Martindale's not getting the most out of his players, or maybe we're overhyping this defense. Will Johnson, Texas's game plan was to keep him out of the game, and basically that's what happened. When whoever receiver he was covering, that guy just took Will Johnson deep down the field and took him out of the play. He can't help you if he's out of the play. All right, let's go back to the two linemen. They weren't getting the pressure. And I think Michigan only had one tackle for loss, period. Just one tackle for loss. If you're not able to get the pressure, if this defense is not able to carry this team right now, then you're in trouble. And a lot of times people are like, oh, well, they're going to be like Iowa. Here's the problem with Iowa's team, guys, for the past couple of years. They played in the Big Ten West. And when you play in the Big Ten West, you know what that means? Softer, easier schedule. You don't have divisions anymore. Michigan is in some serious trouble with this offense. Why? They can't move the ball. If Davis Warren is your best option, you're in trouble. He's a backup QB at the best. I don't see him going out there and leading you to victories. I don't see the confidence in him. I don't see the confidence in the throws. I mean, he goes out there and he's 22 of 33. He throws for 204 yards. He's a touchdown and 2 interceptions, but a lot of the yards came late in the game. And the worst thing that happened to Michigan was Texas got bored. Texas took their foot off the gas. You could say what you want, say, oh, but they scored a touchdown late and, they tried 2-point conversion. Texas didn't care. At that point, Texas was asking, hey, where the party at? Where the girls at? Are we going to party here in Ann Arbor? Or are we going to go hop on the plane and go back to Austin and party? By the third quarter, this thing was over. Think about this. If Texas scores on their first drive, you're looking at a worse score than that. You're looking at now 38 points that they scored. They took the foot off the gas. They just ran out the clock in the second half. The Michigan offense is void of playmakers. It can't just be Colston, Loveland, and everybody else. Loveland finished with 8 catches and 70 yards, but you see even he was out there trying too hard, and he has a fumble. Like, this team is going to be problematic, I think, for Wolverine fans because, either are going to have to abandon your playbook and maybe you just let Davis Warren air the ball out a little bit more to see what happens. Or you just say Alex Orji is your guy and you just kind of run a wildcat type of offense. But the switching of back and forth of quarterbacks, I think that's also going to be problematic when it comes to Michigan. Look, guys, there wasn't a lot to take away from this. Now, you could sit there and say, well, Texas is going to be the national champion. Quinn Ewers is going to win the Heisman. Okay, that's all fine and well, but where was that bravado before the game when it was, oh, well, Michigan can win this game? What Texas did was expose you for what you have, and I don't think that you're going to be airing the ball out. Why? Because Sharon Moore is more of a run-oriented kind of coach. I mean, he was an offensive line coach, and you can't run the ball. And if you can't run the ball, then you're putting pressure on Davis Warren. I mean, when Donovan Edwards goes out there, eight rushes for 41 yards. He had a nice one run, and it was like, okay, well, maybe, he's back, but he really wasn't. Mullings finished with 6 carries for 25 yards. You're not getting a lot out of your playmakers. And a lot of people are going to say, well, that's because Texas has this gigantic NIL program. Maybe, but it's also because Jim Harbaugh kept flirting with the NFL for 3 years. And a lot of those guys who would have committed to Michigan, whether it be a quarterback or a playmaking wide receiver or another running back, decided to go elsewhere because they didn't know if the coach was going to be there. Okay. This is the residual effect of Harbaugh's NFL flirts. Yeah, I said it. It is. You can blame NIL all you want, but if you had playmakers, I think that the money would be found. That was how you were able to keep all your players on the team last year. They weren't broke. They had NIL money, but you just didn't have an influx of new younger players. That was the problem. And now you're seeing that. You don't have the receivers that you want. Samaj Morgan, he's not that guy. You could change your number, but it's very pedestrian stats. Your quarterback situation, I don't think that Jack Tuttle is the answer. Jack Tuttle can't stay healthy. And if you're sitting around waiting for Jack Tuttle, you'll be waiting a long time, because even if he comes back, he's an often injured quarterback. You're going to be right back to Davis Warren. And I know some of you are going to say, well, look at all the NFL players that Michigan put into the draft last year. They absolutely did. So did Texas. Texas put 12 players in the draft. You put 13. Texas didn't miss a beat. Texas O-line pushed you around. Texas got pressure. Texas did everything. Texas was in control. Texas was so confident that they won the coin toss and said, you know what, we're going to take the ball and go right down your throat. And you got to stop. But in the end, it was Texas, hook 'em horns. They got bored. If you're Michigan, well, this is the come to Jesus moment. Sharon Moore says, hey, we got to move past this. I know a lot of people have Michigan in the playoffs. I think that dream is gone. Looking at right now, you get a free square. With Arkansas State, you get a free square coming up this weekend. A chance to kind of right the wrong, lick the wounds, feel good about yourself. But then your next 2 out of 3 games, not good, because one is going to be USC, and this is a revamped USC team. Okay, hey, look, I admit it. I was guilty. I didn't think USC had a defense. Guys, they have a defense. USC is getting it done on both sides of the ball. They're going to be at the big house, and I think that they're going to take it to Michigan and give you your second loss. You didn't get Minnesota, but then after that is a game that I circled at the beginning of the season. A lot of people laughed at me. Historically speaking, Big Ten teams don't do well when they travel to the West Coast. I don't, in the regular season, I don't know what it is. I don't know what happens when you go and cross the Mississippi River, but teams just don't play well. You have to go to Washington and play Jed Fish. Is this Washington team unbeatable? No, they are not. But looking at what I've seen from the sample size, Michigan's first 2 games, I don't know if you travel across the country and are able to match up with the Huskies, who, let's face it, going to have a little bit of revenge factor, though most of the people on that team weren't there for the national title game. All the big-time players are gone except for one. It's going to be difficult. Your next test will be USC. Enjoy this weekend. If you're a Michigan fan, you're going to feel good about yourself, because you're going to go out there and you're going to see this team destroy Arkansas State. You're going to take a deep breath and say, okay, see, we're back. You're not back. I promise you, you're not back. You're looking at a record 8-4 at best, 7-5 with a stumble, 6-6 if you start stumbling too much, because there are a lot of teams out there surprisingly good that no one saw this coming. So for Michigan fans, got to pick a quarterback, and I think it's Davis Warren. You can't keep doing the shuffle. You got to roll the dice with him and see what you have. You're going to need somebody other than Loveland to step up on offense. And for defense, maybe we had a little bit much too hype about this defense. They're good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're a slouch defense. But what I am saying is, to have possibly 3 first-rounders for an NFL draft on defense, and you can't stop teams like Texas, it's problematic. It kind of reminds me when Juwan Howard had 2 lottery picks and Hunter Dickinson and didn't make the tournament. Like, something was wrong there. I don't know what's going on. All right, so let's move on. Ohio State right now is a juggernaut, but they haven't really played anybody, but they're going out there and they're doing what they're supposed to do. Right now, they are the clear class of the Big Ten. Oregon, on the other hand, I don't know what's going on with Oregon. Oregon comes off and Oregon beats Boise State 37-34. If you stayed up for this game, it was an entertaining game if you had no dog in the fight. But guys, between Idaho and Boise State, I don't know what it is about the state of Idaho, but they've given Oregon some fits in these 2 weeks. Oregon is not the team that I thought they were going to be. A lot of people had Oregon pegged to win the Big Ten. Oregon is struggling, and I think a lot of that comes with what you're finding out. There is no such thing as a plug and play when it comes to the transfer QBs. Yeah, we like to think, oh, well, I'm going to go out and get this quarterback and everything's going to be fine. No, there's still a learning curve. You still got to learn the offense. You still got to learn your players. You still got to learn a lot of things. You got to learn your teammates. And I think that's what you're seeing right now. Dillon Gabriel, 18-21 for 243 yards. 2 touchdowns, but he's not the Dillon Gabriel that a lot of people thought. He's not the Dillon Gabriel that a lot of people said, hey, he could possibly win a Heisman. No, he's not even close to Big Ten Player of the Year. This Oregon team is struggling. Defense is giving up a lot of points. It's getting to the point now where Dan Lanning, you're going to have to start questioning because they talk about resources from Michigan, like, oh, well, Texas has unlimited resources. Oregon does. Phil Knight came out and said you could have whatever you want. Oregon went out there and got players, but it's not transferring on the field. You can spend as much money as you want, but continuity is still key to college football. It's not about going out and getting the best transfer. Guys, believe it or not, it's about developing your own players within the system and having that continuity and sprinkling in a few transfers. That is the key. But man, I'm watching that game and Ashton Jeanty, the running back for Boise State, he may be the favorite for the Heisman. Right now, this kid has 9 rushing touchdowns. He finished the game with 25 carries, 192 rushing yards, averaging 7.7 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns. They gave Oregon fits. Oregon found a way in the end. They kicked the field goal to avoid going to overtime because I do believe Oregon goes overtime, and this was at Oregon, okay? So I don't know what Oregon's going to do when they hit the road. So this is not the team that I thought that they were. I'm just saying. Are they good? Yeah. Can they make the playoffs? I think, but I don't know yet because they're winning games, but they're not winning the way I thought. They're not dominant. Ohio State's the only team showing some dominance. Now, here's the thing about Boise State, too, before people are like, oh, well, it's Boise may be the group of 5 team that makes the playoffs. I think it's going to be between Boise and it's going to be between Memphis. One of those two will make the college football playoffs. Boise made a strong step and they voiced a strong opinion for this argument. Why? Because even though they lost 37-34, that was a win for Boise. Because when you look at it, if that's Boise's only loss to a Big Ten school by 3 points on the road, that's going to be a win, and that may catapult them ahead of Memphis, who I think their biggest game is going to be Florida State. But as we all know, Florida State is not the same Florida State. So just something to keep a watch on. I mentioned it earlier. I don't know what's gotten into the Hoosiers, but I can't wait to see them in Big Ten play. But what they did against Western Illinois was just a hot knife through butter. 77-3. Yeah, 77-3. They scored on their first, I believe, 7 possessions. I think the halftime score was like 49-0. Like they weren't kidding, folks. Nothing but touchdowns. That's it. No field goals. They did what you're supposed to do to a bad team, and the Western Illinois team is horrible. Okay, but my God, kudos to the Fighting Hoosiers, because I don't know what's gotten into you. They're trying to turn the page. Cincinnati he's putting his stamp on this program. A couple other games. Props to Nebraska. I mean, you slayed the dragon. You did everybody a favor. You showed and exposed that Colorado is a fraud of a team, that Deion is out there playing daddy ball instead of playing football, instead of building a program. This game was never in doubt from the pick six. Nebraska, Dylan Raiola, I think, is really going to be a good quarterback as a freshman. He's making some big time throws. I think Nebraska has found the quarterback that they have not had in forever. So Nebraska is a team, and the schedule is setting up that I think near the end, we're going to be talking about Nebraska pushing for a playoff spot. So Nebraska defeats Colorado 27-10. Another big game, Illinois upsets Kansas and they rush the field. And you know what? I had this conversation and I'm all about that. You know what? Kansas was ranked. Students rush the field because you don't get to see that often. Big Bert has this thing rolling this year. I mean, I didn't expect Illinois to defeat Kansas, but Bielema, he's bringing some swagger back to Illini football. And, you know, Illinois is not going to be a pushover. Illinois is going to be in a whole lot of coin flip games this year. This helps them. This helps their resume going off and beating this Kansas team. So kudos to Illinois and Bielema and getting that victory 23-17. Also, Rutgers appears to be somewhat of a Menange. Dude, he's him. He just runs angry. And Rutgers kind of like Indiana is a team that I don't think anybody's paying attention to. It's a team that nobody is watching. But Rutgers goes and they beat Akron. And yeah, I know it's a MAC team, Akron. They beat them 49-17. But it's the way that they're defeating teams. It is brutal. And you know, they have a rushing attack. This, you know, so long as the running back stays healthy, Rutgers is going to upset some people in the Big Ten. Rutgers is going to have a lot of close games because you're going to be thinking, oh, it's just Rutgers. Now, hey, guys, Rutgers is another team to watch out for. The Big Ten may not be top heavy, but in the middle, there are a lot of teams that on any given Saturday or now any given Friday can knock each other off. It's going to make for a fun Big Ten. Now, what this may do is it may mean that the Big Ten won't have 4 teams in the college football playoffs because it may cannibalize each other. You're going to see a lot of upsets in the Big Ten. Finally, Penn State, don't know what you were thinking, but you found a way against Bowling Green to come back. Bowling Green had a lead in the fourth quarter. I mean, coming off of that Western Virginia game, I thought that James Franklin maybe was going to be one of the top teams. I don't know if it was just a letdown for Penn State, but Bowling Green gave them everything they had and more. Penn State rallied to come back. Drew Aller rallied his team. They got the win over Bowling Green 34-27, but it wasn't pretty. Penn State had to sweat it out, and I know a lot of fans were not happy. As I said, right now, Ohio State looks to be the cream of the crop of the Big Ten. But Ohio State has not played anybody, but they're defeating the bad teams, and they're beating the bad teams like bad teams. Now, once Ohio State finally gets in there and finally, you know, plays that tough game, I think we'll know a lot more about Ohio State. But right now, man, I look. Oh, and by the way, the other team to watch out for is USC. I spoke about it earlier when it came to Michigan. USC blanks Utah State 48-0. USC may be the surprise team. USC may be what we thought Oregon was going to be, but we just didn't give them any props. For Ohio State, I mean, your first real test will come, I guess it will be October 12th. You're traveling to Austin. You're going to be playing Oregon. Then a week after that, you're going to be playing Nebraska. That 2-game test is going to show me a lot about what the Buckeyes really are. So that's your wrap up for week 2 of the Big Ten. Week 3 preview will be coming up a little bit later on this week. But thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing. Tell your friends. Let's keep this thing going. I'm your host, Rico Beard. You have been watching the 5 Star Zone.